announcements, and then I'm going to introduce Ian, who you know, but he will introduce some of his students that you might not know, and some of their recent accomplishments out of the competition at Williams, as well as his own, and then a conversation about a couple things. Thank you for making time. I know it's a hectic time of year, so why don't I wait on the announcements, and Ian, if you would please introduce our students.
Sure, thank you. So as you heard, Bob asked me to share the results of a recent competition that some of our students attended. I'll say that many of our students make the journey from here to UMass. The path from here to Yale is far less traveled, but these 5 gentlemen I'm about to introduce went to Yale. Recently we hopped into a van and drove all down there to compete in a Rubik's Cube competition. And so I'll say that 4 of these 5 guys you're about to meet learned how to solve the cube while they were here. And all 5 of them are now officially ranked by the WCA, which I don't need to tell you, I'm sure you know, is the World Association. All right, so we're going to start with Chris. Chris, come on up. Wow. So this is Chris Brennan. About Chris, I asked each of these 5 guys to send me an email just to share something with me that they wanted me to pass along to you, and Chris did not do that, so you get these 2 random things that I happen to know about Chris. He has a cat named Mr. President, and Chris once showed up 68 minutes late to a 70-minute calculus class. So at this competition at Yale, Chris's best time was 1 minute 6 seconds, and his average was 1 minute 23, which placed him not last. Okay, next person, Jeremy, come on up. So this is Jeremy Vandal. So Jeremy's grandparents actually made the trip to this competition to support. And Grandpa, who just turned 80 back on Valentine's Day, actually knows how to solve the cube in under 2 minutes. We tried to encourage him to compete officially, but he was content just to cheer on his grandson. Jeremy's best time was 1:02, and average was 1:16.12. So this is Evan Morrell.
Hi, Evan.
Works as a blacksmith at Morrell Metalworks, just up the road in Coleraine. Any business you got from that, I get 10%. And Evan's times here, 55.4 was his single best time, and then 1:11.94. And last semester, Evan made Dean's List, which is great. Come on up, Alex. Okay, so this is Alex. I'm going to say just a tiny bit more. So I'm going to say a tiny bit more about Alex. Alex shared with me a very personal essay, and I asked him if I could summarize that essay here with you, and he said okay. The first line of his essay, I want to quote this. I spent the last 22 years of my life thinking I was an idiot. Alex really floundered for most of his education. And only recently did he do some reading and research and learn that there are different learning styles. And the style that was predominantly taught him all growing up through his education just did not fit him. But once he realized that he was a visual learner and started to learn some techniques, he's been thriving. Alex made President's List last semester here. Alex has used some of these new memory techniques that he's learned about to memorize 2,000 digits of pi, which is quite a few. So I will point out his times here. Average's single best time was just under 44 seconds, and his average was 35. And I'm going to click on Alex, because Alex has been to a couple other tournaments as well. Come on, internet. Okay, then we will just say what this page was going to say. So Alex has been to, I think, 3 tournaments? 4? Not available. All right. But I was going to point out that Alex has showed significant improvement on his times. His average here was like 55 seconds, I think. He's been to a few more tournaments and has gotten his average down to
32.
32 seconds. Really good. All right. All right, so we're having some technical issues here, but we will make do. Okay, so this is Josh Orange. Remember I had said that, so I said that 4 of our 5 cubers learned how to solve while they were here. That's the 4 guys in the back here. Josh was our veteran cuber, and he is also our veteran from Iraq. Josh is treasurer of VetNet, president of the Math Club. And in his spare time, he's found time to embrace one of his other hobbies besides the Rubik's Cube. Josh has completed 22 marathons. So unfortunately, we don't have the live statistics up here at the moment, but Josh's best average in competition. So he and Alex have kind of leapfrogged each other at these various competitions. And Josh's best average is now down at 28?
I think I did, yeah, I think it's around 28.
28 seconds is the best average in a competition. And I was also going to highlight some of the other puzzles that Josh has been involved in. Do you have the 6 with you?
Yes.
Go ahead and grab that. So the standard Rubik's Cube is 3 by 3 by 3, but there are various sizes that are also in competition. And I still have Josh edged out a little bit on the traditional Rubik's Cube, but he dominates me on the bigger cubes. And currently Josh is ranked in the top 50 in the United States on the puzzle that he's about to pull out, which is the, go hold it up, that's the 6 by 6 by 6 puzzle. So Josh is in the top 50 in the US of that puzzle. So let's see. So the last thing about that Yale competition, we were very well represented. The 6 of us represented 13% of all of the competitors on that day, which is great. These guys are all going to do a solve for you, all at the same time. So they're scrambling up a little bit, and I'm going to just find somebody to give a few more random turns to. So while people are scrambling, I will say that in competition, the competitors get up to 15 seconds to inspect the cube, just to flat out their first few moves and get their bearings. So we're going to give these guys a few seconds before we officially start the clock. And the other thing I'm going to ask is that, so these guys aren't cubing in complete silence, which for me would be quite challenging. If you can just chat with your neighbors for the next minute or so. All right, so first. All right, so you guys just stand in line.
Mine's still running. I started 32. Are
you kidding? All right, you guys ready to inspect? Don't start yet.
Put on my thumb.
3, 2, 1, go.
Going.
got one more quick demonstration for you. So just in case solving the Rubik's Cube with your eyes open isn't challenging enough, Josh is going to do a blindfold solve for us. So, Bob, we need you up here to make sure he doesn't cheat. Come on up. So let me just explain that part of solving blindfolded involves memorizing the state of the cube, and then the other part, after you put the blindfold on, is solving it, right? Now, the memorizing is quite boring to watch. So Josh has come up here, not with a cooked scramble, it is very well scrambled, but he's already done the memorization part beforehand, so we don't have to see that. So Josh is going to put the blindfold on. Bob, you're going to come here and put the piece of paper, just in case that blindfold isn't really on. And then he's going to do his thing, and I will talk a little bit about what he's doing while he's doing it. So Josh, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Go ahead and put the blindfold on. Go ahead and start.
Piece of paper right after you go here.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. That's good. So, it's hard to talk about the solving aspect to people that don't know how to solve with their eyes open, so I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not judging. But I'll just say that it is not as difficult as it might appear at first blush. So I will talk about the memorizing part. So there's a lot of information on this cube, all colors, right? I'm going to name for you 3 color pairs and ask you to try to memorize them right now. First one is red-white. Keep that memorized. Second one, yellow-green. Third one, red-blue. Raise your hand if you think you can name all 6 of those, all 3 pairs. So some of us, that's great. I'll say that in order to memorize everything, it's probably about 20 of those pairs. That's a lot of information to keep track of. A lot of cubers translate that into things that are more memorable. So instead of red-white, we're just going to call that Santa Claus, because I imagine him in a red with white around it. And then the yellow-green, I think of a banana that's not quite right. So now I'm picturing Santa Claus enjoying a banana. And then red and blue, to me, reminds me of Spider-Man's outfit, mostly red and blue with a little bit of black. So I picture Spider-Man swooping in on his web and stealing that banana from Santa Claus. And all of a sudden, I've compressed that data into something that's a lot more memorable. And so you make these stories. And that's how you remember the information, and then the solving aspect, like I said, is a little bit different.
So did Josh just write a book as he solved that? Did Josh just write a full book as he solved that?
Can you share the memorized stuff?
Okay. So the words that I sort of committed to memory when I solved that particular scramble, my first letter pair was K and L. So I thought of the keel of the ship. So I'm picturing this this boat going somewhere. And then my next 2 letters were BL, which is sort of, BL is considered one. BL and an R, so I'm thinking blur. So I'm like, all right, this ship is in like a hazy fog. You can't see it. So I'm picturing this boat. And then my next ones were TH and W, and so I thought, well, thaw, because it's cold, and it's boat in cold, icy waters. And then the boat turned and started heading towards where I used to work in DC, because that's just what the letter pair commanded, and weird things like that are memorable. So it starts heading towards my old hospital. And then my next 2 were J and N. I'm like, oh, well, it's January because it's cold. And then the next 2, I just sort of made up a word that makes no sense, but it's sort of a standard word that just always has you flipping an edge around. It's PLOH, flow. Doesn't make any sense, like I said. And then, so that took care of all of my edges. The edges and the corners are done separately. So when I moved on to the corners, I thought of this most bizarre scenario where I had a car that was made out of a giant BLT sandwich, which was clogging up a microphone. So it makes no sense, but then again, those are the things that we remember. So committing those words to memory, I was able to sort of walk myself through this very bizarre scenario, doing the appropriate move for each letter. And I've been doing this for less than a year, so I'm not as good at it as some people, but you gotta start somewhere.
Questions for our cubers?
Bravo! Josh is kind of on stage right now anyway. Josh has other talents, and one thing he's going to be dabbling in April, on April 10th, is a staged reading of a play called Make Sure It's Me, which brings awareness to traumatic brain injuries and post-traumatic stress disorder for veterans. He was the one who inspired bringing it to the college. His photographs, which is another one of his talents, are featured on the materials that were originally used in the play that debuted last summer or the summer before?
Last summer.
So please mark your calendars for Thursday, April 10th at 2 o'clock in Sloan Theater, and see another talent that Josh will be bringing to the stage.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you, Tim.